unsettling thing is that you feel it even before you understand. Machiavelli knew exactly why. What nobody told you is that there's a forbidden strategy hidden between the lines of the prince, capable of destroying any attempt to put you down in the hierarchy. A strategy so simple that you may have already seen it work right in front of you and didn't realize it. It doesn't require aggression, shouting, or direct confrontation. On the contrary, it uses human nature to its advantage and transforms you into someone who will never again be treated as inferior. Sounds like an exaggeration? It's not. It's just politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And the truth is, you've probably missed out a lot in life by not knowing this, by thinking you needed to defend yourself, by believing you needed to be understood, loved, applauded. Meanwhile, others, perhaps less intelligent, less prepared, less capable, rose to positions that should have been yours. Not because they deserved it, but because they understood something almost no one understands. Power isn't about reacting. Power is about controlling the framing. Today, I'm going to show you step by step how this strategy works and why it destroys any hierarchy that tries to squeeze you. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He always said that when a man rushes to defend himself, he has already lost the game before it even begins. And this is not fantasy. It's politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Those who rush to explain every move convey exactly what Machiavelli knew centuries ago, that in the human theater, perception is destiny. When someone attacks you and you react by justifying yourself, you hand over the key to your psychological castle to the other side. It's like saying without words, yes, you have authority over me. And deep down, most people don't even realize they're doing this automatically. For example, someone makes a harsh comment at work and you immediately try to appear fair or understanding. But an outside observer only sees someone who has accepted the aggressor's framing. That's when the phrase, better to be feared than loved, ceases to be provocation and becomes a practical tool, because what matters is not your intention, it's the effect your posture causes. A wise person never rushes to clear their own name. He lets time do its work while keeping his aura intact, like someone guarding their own loyal armies within their own silence. Think of someone you truly respect. Does this person constantly defend themselves? Probably not. They speak little, act with calculated use of force, and don't bow to the opinions of others. Now imagine the opposite. That colleague who gets offended easily, over-justifies, tries to explain every detail. They may even be right, but they seem weak. Because in the human game, being right doesn't matter as much as avoiding being hated and maintaining control of one's own emotional territory. Excessive defensiveness creates an image of insecurity, and insecurity inspires attacks. This is how it has worked from Renaissance Italy to your Sunday lunch table. That's why Machiavelli repeated between the lines that the end justifies the means. If the intention is to maintain your position, your energy, and your dignity, not explaining yourself may be the most efficient means. The curious thing is that when you don't react, people begin to project onto you a strength that you may not even know you have. It's the appearance of virtue working in your favor, even when you don't lift a finger. And there's a detail that changes everything. When someone tries to corner you, what they really want isn't your explanation, it's your emotional submission. The attack is always a test. It's as if the world is asking, "What's your price?" And when you rush to explain yourself, the world learns that you're cheap. But when you stand firm, when you act with decisions based on real human nature, the balance shifts. The attacker begins to wonder if they misread the situation. The observers begin to wonder what you know that they don't. This small inversion marks the beginning of your constant adaptability, because you go from reactive to strategist. And curiously, it is precisely in this safe silence that your first form of real power is born, the ability to make the other person doubt themselves. This point inevitably leads us to the next step, one of the most elegant and underestimated resources of human power. He discovered early on that silence is sharper than any argument. While the world rushes to defend itself, explain, justify, the strategist remains silent, not because he is weak, but because he understands that politics is guided by reality, not by ideals. And reality is simple. Whoever reacts first loses. When someone accuses you and you don't react, the accusation finds nowhere to land. It falls to the ground like an arrow without a target. And meanwhile, the attacker begins to mentally revisit every word he said, wondering if he crossed the line, if he misinterpreted, if he exaggerated. It's fascinating to observe this working in real-world settings. Have you ever seen someone make a sharp comment and the other person just observes, silently, with that slight, confident half-smile? Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room changes. It's the calculated use of force in its most sophisticated form. You don't expend energy, but others do for you. This silent power creates exactly what Machiavelli extolled, the perfect blend of virtù and fortuna, where you control yourself and let fate work in your favor. The most curious thing is that silence isn't emptiness. It's framing. Those who talk too much reveal motives, weaknesses, explanations. Those who remain silent reveal only mystery. And mystery is always worth more than clarity in power games. Machiavelli said that the end justifies the means, and here the end is simple: to maintain a perception of strength. Silence creates this end with minimal effort. When you don't respond immediately, you force the aggressor to fill in the gaps. They begin to project fears, insecurities, interpretations. It's as if your silence becomes a mirror that reflects back to the other person what they tried to project onto you. And without realizing it, they begin to doubt their own accusation. A practical example. In a work argument, someone accuses you of not collaborating enough. Instead of justifying yourself, a firm look and a slow 2-second pause are enough. That's all. Those around you begin to wonder what's really going on. You, without saying anything, activate your appearance of virtue and keep your own loyal armies, your posture, intact. And the most powerful aspect of this mechanism is its secondary effect. When you don't defend yourself, others start doing it for you. It's surprising but natural. People trust more those who don't react emotionally. They see stability, composure, control, exactly the kind of presence Machiavelli described as fundamental to being more feared than loved, not because you're aggressive, but because you're unpredictable. Silence makes you unreadable, and everything that is unreadable generates respect. That's why in modern social strategies, whether in a group of friends, a company, a relationship, or even online, whoever speaks less almost always dominates more. The truth is that silence is less about keeping quiet and more about not giving ammunition. While the attacker wears themselves out seeking a reaction, you grow in the collective imagination. And it is at this point that the perfect bridge to the next Machiavellian weapon emerges, the ability to transform accusation into a mirror. He learned that in power games, there is no more elegant attack than returning the accusation as if it were a mirror. And this is not cheap manipulation. It is politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because the emotional reality of most people is fragile. When someone accuses you, that person usually expects resistance, defense, drama, anything that confirms their attempt at control. But instead of fueling the attack, the strategist observes. And when he speaks little. Something simple like, "You seem a little emotional today." This phrase, said calmly, shifts the center of the conflict from you to the other person. Suddenly, the accuser is the one who needs to explain himself. He begins to wonder if he exaggerated, if he was aggressive, if he crossed the line. You effortlessly create the appearance of virtue while he loses the framework he thought he dominated. It is precisely here that the end justifies the means. You are not trying to be nice. You are trying to maintain psychological power. Turning accusation into mirroring works because the human mind reacts to framing, not facts. If someone says, "You're irresponsible," and you respond, "I understand," what made you feel that way? Do you see the inversion? You've gone from being the accused to being the observer. Subtly, you put the other person in the emotional position they wanted to impose on you. This is the calculated use of force in its most refined version. You don't attack, you displace. This displacement is so powerful that even historical figures used it. Machiavelli knew that intelligent rulers avoided over-explaining, not out of pride, but because explanation creates vulnerability. Mirroring, on the other hand, creates doubt, and doubt weakens any attack. Practical example, in a relationship discussion, someone says, "You never care." Instead of trying to convince the other person otherwise, just say, "Interesting. What exactly made you interpret it that way today?" Suddenly, the pressure is no longer on you. This is decisions based on real human nature. When you master this inversion, something curious happens. People start to be careful with their words when speaking to you. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are too unpredictable and stable to be manipulated. This is where better to be feared than loved gains nuance. It's not literal fear, but psychological respect, a feeling that you see more than you show. And this creates in the eyes of others an aura of virtue and fortune, as if luck is always on your side when, in reality, it's just strategy applied calmly. This skill also protects you from repetitive emotional attacks. Every time someone tries to pull your energy down, you return the weight to the attacker's hand. And this opens space for something even deeper and more surprising, realizing that in power games, clarity can be a weapon, but mystery is an entire realm. And that's precisely what guides us to the next topic. He realized there's a great deal of confusion in the modern world. People believe they need to be fully understood, to be respected. This is a dangerous misconception. In therapy, clarity heals. In power, clarity exposes. Machiavelli already demonstrated this when he advocated for politics guided by reality, not ideals, because in reality, whoever reveals everything they think also reveals the map of their own weaknesses. When a man reveals every detail of what he feels, thinks, or hopes for, he becomes predictable, and the predictable never dominates. Mystery, on the other hand, is a natural wall, a silent form of calculated use of force where you don't hide out of insecurity, but select what the world deserves to know. It's the same logic as historical leaders who spoke little and were deeply respected. Not because they were unreachable, but because they knew their strength lay in what they didn't say. And it's curious. When you stop explaining everything, your presence changes, and others begin to walk around you cautiously. Complete clarity in human relationships is often sold as a sign of maturity, but it's often just disguised naivete. The strategist knows that emotional control isn't about being transparent. It's about being intentional. And this is all related to Machiavelli's phrase, "It is better to be feared than loved." It's not about intimidation, but about projecting consistency, firmness, and boundaries. People who talk too much about their emotions end up losing the respect of those around them because they transform vulnerability into exposure. On the other hand, the person who speaks enough, just enough, gains something much more valuable: attention. A practical example. In a meeting, while everyone explains each decision at length, you say in 2 sentences what needs to be said. This conciseness creates the appearance of virtue, the feeling that you know exactly what you're doing. And incredibly, this perception is worth more than always being right. This is where the end justifies the means again. The end is respect. The means is mystery. Mystery creates something impossible to fake, an aura. People who expose themselves too much become an open book. People who expose themselves too little become an enigma. And the enigma always wins because it forces others to observe you, try to decipher you, take you more seriously. This aura is built with decisions based on real human nature, understanding that human beings fear the unknown and respect those who control their own narrative. It's no coincidence that great strategists, from Renaissance rulers to modern CEOs, cultivate this slight unpredictability. They speak when they want to, not when they are pressured. They take a stand when it matters, not when they are asked to. They maintain constant adaptability, but never constant predictability. And it is precisely this combination that transforms an ordinary individual into someone who silently influences any environment. Now, when clarity ceases to be a weapon and mystery takes control, the door opens to something even more practical and immediate. Tactics applicable to daily social games. When he began to apply all of this in practice, he realized that small actions completely change social dynamics. In public, for example, politics guided by reality, not by ideals, says that you don't need to confront or flee. You just need to control the pace. Someone makes a provocation. He doesn't respond immediately. He pauses for 2 seconds, long enough to generate doubt, and maintains a calm, almost curious gaze. This simple pause is already a calculated use of force because it makes the attacker wonder if they made a mistake. After that, a short, precise, and slightly disdainful comment resolves everything. Something like "interesting" or "that's your opinion." This economy of words destabilizes the other person. The people around perceive his coldness, his appearance of virtue, his firmness. And while the aggressor becomes agitated, you remain intact, like someone who truly understood that on the social stage, the end often justifies the means. In meetings, the game changes and becomes even more sophisticated. Here, what brings a man down is falling into the trap of provocation, that is, taking the bait. Therefore, when someone tries to expose you or drag you into a conflict, you simply redirect. Instead of defending yourself, you say, "Let's hear your strategy." This seemingly neutral phrase dismantles the attacker because it forces him to perform. He expected to put you on the defensive, but now he needs to deliver something concrete. This is where Machiavelli's strategy shines. You make the other person expend energy while preserving your own. This is decisions based on real human nature because most people attack to appear competent. By asking them to explain, you confront them with their own emptiness. Entire companies reorganize themselves around people who have this skill. And when you master this, you begin to operate with an aura reminiscent of virtu and fortuna, that mixture of skill and luck that generates immediate respect. In relationships, and especially online, these tactics become even more powerful. At home, when someone tries to emotionally trap you with phrases like, "You always do this," you don't validate the framing. You simply respond, "That's not how I see it." Short, calm, unwavering. This controls the emotional rhythm and prevents the conflict from escalating. On the internet, however, the game is different. Whoever defends themselves automatically loses. And Machiavelli would understand this perfectly, because in the digital environment, perception is even faster than in the real world. An accusation arises, you don't explain anything, you just reframe. A simple example, someone calls you arrogant. Your response could be, people call arrogance what they can't control. This immediately activates the dynamic of better to be feared than loved, because it transforms the attack into evidence of power. And when you learn to play this game, you begin to perceive the birth of an even rarer skill, verbal precision. He realized, over time, that some phrases have more impact than entire speeches. They are verbal weapons, too small to attract attention, but sharp enough to turn any situation around. Machiavelli would understand this perfectly, since all politics guided by reality, not by ideals, depends on precise communication. When you say confidence disturbs the insecure, you are not attacking, you are describing a truth. And anyone who feels attacked reveals unintentionally their own instability. This phrase works in professional, family, and even romantic environments because it repositions you as someone who operates with the calculated use of force, firm, calm, unwavering. It's a subtle way to show authority without having to raise your voice. And the beauty lies precisely in that. You don't need to prove anything. You just state it calmly, others absorb it, and suddenly the whole room adjusts to your rhythm. Another powerful weapon is the simplicity of "I don't owe you" authenticity. It seems aggressive at first glance, but it's simply reality. No one is obligated to emotionally undress themselves to satisfy someone else's curiosity or insecurity. This phrase elegantly sets boundaries, reinforcing the logic that it's better to be feared than loved when it comes to preserving your energy. It shows that you operate with intention, not impulsiveness. And if someone insists, "But I need to know what you think," you can respond with another strategic gem, "I don't think like everyone else." This phrase reopens the mystery, amplifies your appearance of virtue, and reinforces your unpredictability. People who want to control you hate this phrase because it escapes their logic. You shift your focus, strengthen yourself, and preserve yourself. This type of response almost automatically creates the perception that you act with decisions based on real human nature, and this attracts respect. But perhaps the most Machiavellian weapon of all is the calmest. Noted, "Time will tell." This phrase is devastating because it eliminates discussion, ends conflict, and positions you above the tension. It works in debates, criticisms, provocations, and even direct attacks. Whoever receives this phrase realizes that you will not defend yourself. And this creates exactly what Machiavelli called virtù and fortuna, personal skill aligned with the game of time. You don't pressure, you don't confront, you don't lower yourself. You simply let time validate your position. People who live on impulse cannot tolerate this. They want an immediate reaction. When you don't deliver, they become emotionally disorganized. This is how silence and verbal precision combine to form an aura that is difficult to break. And this aura prepares the ground for the most brutal, cold, and efficient tactic of all: disappearing. He discovered that there are battles not even worth raising a sword, and that often true power lies in simply disappearing. Not disappearing physically, but psychologically. Withdrawing your attention, your energy, your emotional involvement. This is the purest strategy of politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because in human reality, every attack needs a reaction to survive. When you don't react, the blow evaporates. It's like taking the oxygen out of a fire. Not recognizing, not responding. This is the modern version of the calculated use of force. You choose not to fight, not because you are afraid, but because there is nothing there that threatens your internal empire. Have you noticed how some people collapse when you simply stop responding? It's because most depend emotionally on your reaction to validate their own narrative. When you disappear, they lose their mirror. And when they lose their mirror, they lose control. Strategic disappearance is an art because it demands emotional discipline. It requires understanding that many conversations, conflicts, and discussions don't deserve explanation. They deserve silence. Machiavelli knew that the end justifies the means, and here the end is to preserve your energy. And the means? Simple. You don't participate in the fight. It's impressive to observe how prolonged silence disorganizes the attacker. First comes the doubt. Did he even see? Then comes the anxiety. Does he not care? And finally comes the insecurity. Am I wrong? You didn't say a word, but you moved the entire board. This is decisions based on real human nature, because human nature detests the absence of a response. Human beings fill voids, and when that void is you, the other person begins to construct imaginary versions of your strength. They overestimate you, and that gives you power. There is no cleaner tactic. And the most fascinating thing, by disappearing at the right moment, you create exactly what Machiavelli valued. Better to be feared than loved, not out of aggression, but out of unpredictability. People who can't predict your reaction begin to treat you with care. People who wanted to attack you begin to control themselves. People who wanted to manipulate you begin to tread on eggshells. You become an unknown quantity, an enigma, a shadow. And the shadow in social games is much more powerful than any explanation. Prolonged silence becomes a mirror where the other sees their own instability reflected. And when someone tries to hurt you again, they no longer have the same strength because they know you can simply leave the stage. This creates a rare kind of silent authority, which opens space for the next layer of this power construction. The social principles that sustain this impenetrable aura. He realized that in social games, people desperately fight to be understood, as if that were synonymous with strength. But Machiavelli had already shown the opposite. To be fully understood is to be fully limited. When you are predictable, you become a tool. When you are an enigma, you become a variable of power. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because in human reality, those who dominate are those who cause doubt, not those who cause comfort. A strong reputation is not about being nice, it's about being consistent, stable, difficult to manipulate. Someone who knows how to exercise the calculated use of force. Whether at work, in relationships, or online, what truly protects you is not being seen as good, but being seen as someone who doesn't bend easily. Predictable people are disposable. Illegible people are respected. And this silent respect is the first brick in building an aura that precedes you in any environment. Here's where that phrase that many misinterpret comes in. It's better to be feared than loved. It doesn't mean terrorizing the world. It means being someone whose presence regulates the behavior of others. Fear here is synonymous with consideration. When people know you don't tolerate disrespect, they naturally adjust their own tone. This is based on real human nature. Nobody respects someone who begs for respect. People respect those who calmly set boundaries. And this kind of energy creates something rare, a reputation that defends you even when you're not around. Have you noticed how some people are treated with care even when they're not present? This isn't by chance. It's strategy. It's aura. It's the appearance of virtue built by your own disciplined silence. And when your reputation begins to precede you, you stop playing the game. You become the game. Creating an aura that makes people cautious isn't about intimidation, but about establishing an invisible standard of behavior around you. When your posture communicates that you don't easily get into dramas, that you don't react impulsively, and that you use virtù and fortuna to navigate situations with elegance, the world sees you differently. This aura makes ill-intentioned people think twice before testing you. It makes respectable individuals feel confident in your presence. It makes your social value increase effortlessly. It's as if your mere existence becomes a psychological boundary. And this boundary prepares the ground for a curious and extremely useful phenomenon. When your silence and your aura are strong enough, others begin to defend you spontaneously, even without you asking. And it is precisely this involuntary reaction that leads us to the next topic. He discovered that disciplined silence has an extremely valuable side effect. It creates invisible defenders. When you don't react to attacks, when you act with politics guided by reality, not by ideals, the people around you observe your posture and curiously begin to defend you on their own. They interpret your silence as strength, not weakness. In the public mind, those who don't explain themselves know what they're doing. This automatically activates your appearance of virtue, that feeling of righteousness and inner mastery that inspires respect. Have you noticed that truly powerful figures almost never respond to their own criticism? They don't need to. There's always someone who does it for them. And this mechanism is so strong that it becomes a social buffer. When someone tries to attack you, another person intervenes before you even consider opening your mouth. This is calculated use of force, but applied without you lifting a finger. Silence also transforms you into something rare, illegible. And human beings fear what they cannot decipher. Machiavelli knew that the end justifies the means when the end is to maintain psychological stability. When you answer little, speak only what is necessary, and don't reveal your entire emotional life, others begin to project their own insecurities onto you. It's as if your silence functions like a gigantic mirror, reflecting much more about the other person than about you. Unstable people begin to show themselves. Balanced people approach. This is decisions based on real human nature, because we know that everyone interprets the world from their own internal chaos. When you don't explain yourself, don't justify yourself, and don't reveal too much, you don't give them material to interpret you, so they interpret themselves. It's a silent form of psychological leadership that few master. And here's the most Machiavellian point of all. People fear those they can't provoke. This isn't literal fear, but instinctive respect. When someone tries to destabilize you and fails, tries again and fails, tries once more and continues to fail, that person creates an involuntary perception that you operate on another emotional level. This gives you an invisible reputation for strength, exactly as Machiavelli described when he spoke of better to be feared than loved. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are not emotionally accessible. You don't react to the other person's chaos. And when this happens repeatedly, you cease to be just one person and become a psychological pattern, someone who doesn't bend, someone who doesn't crawl, someone who doesn't change. This stability prepares the ground for the final transformation, when silence ceases to be defense and becomes identity, and that's where we reach the next stage of this evolution. He finally understood that there is a natural evolution in personal power. First, you try to defend yourself. Then, you learn to be silent. Finally, you discover that you don't even need to do anything anymore, because your own aura speaks for you. This is the synthesis of politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because in human reality, those who dominate are those who don't need to justify their existence. When you reach this stage, attacks don't reach you. They fall before touching your surface. It's the phase of psychological immunity, where you simply don't recognize the blow. Not because you're arrogant, but because you know that every attack is just a request for energy, and you don't waste energy on those who have no real power. This is where Machiavelli's teaching gains new depth. The end justifies the means, when the end is to maintain your stability and the means is to ignore noise. You don't react, you exist, and that's enough. At this stage, you realize that living defensively means living in someone else's territory, and living in definition means living in your own territory. And this definition isn't verbal, it's behavioral. It's the way you walk, talk, observe, and decide. It's the calculated use of force in every gesture, even in silences. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't give in, you don't explain, you don't rush. You simply maintain your line, your posture, your vision. This creates something rare, a psychological field around you. People who enter it feel the need to adjust. Not because you asked, but because you live in internal coherence. This coherence creates your appearance of virtue, which is perceived as moral strength, even if you are only being stable. And when this stability is repeated in your routine, your relationships begin to reorganize themselves naturally. When your very existence becomes your defense, you arrive at the synthesis of Machiavellian philosophy applied to the 21st century. Better to be feared than loved doesn't mean imposing fear, but building presence. It means you no longer need to raise your voice, correct injustices, or respond to attacks. Your reputation, your aura, your constancy, your own loyal armies do that for you. It's the ideal combination of virtu and fortuna, where your inner ability finds the right environment to flourish. At this point, you no longer worry about who accuses you, who criticizes you, or who tries to diminish you. Every attempt to harm you dies on its own. And while the world wears itself down in conflict, you silently strengthen yourself because you've learned to live in definition, not in defense. This is the stage that transforms an ordinary man into a presence impossible to ignore. And it is precisely from this essence that the impactful final phrase of this chapter is born. Now that you understand what Machiavelli knew centuries ago, it's impossible to look at power games in the same way. Because the truth is simple. No one falls from a hierarchy due to a lack of talent. They fall because they overreact. And no one rises by chance. They rise because they control their own framework. Do you realize what this means for your life? It means that from today onward, you no longer need to explain yourself, justify yourself, or beg for understanding. You only need to adopt the right silence, the right posture, the right strategy. But here's the question that really matters. Are you going to continue living defensively, or are you going to start living decisively? Are you going to keep reacting to every provocation, or are you going to let silence work for you? Are you going to allow anyone to steal your emotional energy, or are you finally going to take the place that should have been yours from the beginning? Think about it. Because the world treats you exactly the way you treat yourself internally. And if you don't protect your own hierarchy, someone will try to take it in your place. And before you go, answer me honestly. Which of these strategies will you apply first? The 2-second pause, the precise phrase, the strategic disappearance, or the art of not recognizing the blow? Comment below. I want to see who really understood the game. And if you want to continue learning this kind of knowledge that nobody teaches, but that completely changes your relationships and your personal power, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. With each video, you'll realize that there's a much smarter way to move in the world, and that way starts right here.